can bend over at the same time. You would. So they go on home system.
Just well get them lined up.
How are you going to do this?
Tammy only brought me one battery.
If you tie all 4 feet up at once, it's going to be a wreck.
No, he can't kick you then.
Holter packed what?
You forgot to pack
No,
a little battery.
Holter packed what? Holter didn't pack the bag like he was told. Wait, on crap. Right.
You're going?
Yep.
All right.
You're ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Mike Engelbrecht, Happy's horseshoeing. That he's going to give you a demonstration this morning of how to trim this horse. I think you said you got a little footage on him putting him in the stock.
Yep.
This is a shoeing stock. This is what we use on the big horses. There's chains underneath his belly to keep him from laying down. There's chains over the top to keep him from rearing up. There's butt chains to keep him from running backwards, and 2 side chains on the front to keep him from flipping his head or going upside down. The key to the shoeing stock is put everything on in case you need it or whether you need it or not. Okay, from there on you put a leg strap on their front foot. It's got rings here in the side and a tie knob on the top. So Mike will jack up the leg here now. The purpose of these shoeing stocks is these horses are so daggum big that you can't hold every one of them up. It does not always work real easy, so sometimes you gotta outmaneuver them. They've got the blocks on the front and the back. You tie their foot in like that. Once you get their foot tied in, there isn't a whole heck of a lot he can do about it. He's got 2 choices. He can take it and like it, or like it and take it. The first thing he's doing here is cleaning all the excess stuff out of the bottom of his foot, get down to where he can see what he's got to trim. As these horses' feet grow long, the outside grows long, but also the inside is what they call the sole. It just keeps growing longer and longer with it. So that's what he's doing right now is digging out that sole, which is usually a lot softer than the hoof. The frog itself is the V-shaped piece in the middle of the foot. That's what pumps the blood as that horse walks every step. If his foot is real short and the frog's long, that tells nature to grow more feet. When he gets all that sole cleaned out, that it's kind of the longer it gets, the deader it gets. But when he gets all that flaky stuff cleaned out of the sole, then he can see what he's got to trim on the length of the outside of the hoof.
He's sitting on that strap back there.
That's why you got 2 straps instead of 1, Pat.
You can see that's why we put the straps on their back legs too, because then that keeps him from getting those feet so far forward that he lays down too much.
If a horse is really fighting you, he'll go to setting down on that and his feet will run forward and he will just totally be setting on that.
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about horses' butts, but it looks like there's a lot of weight on that chain right now.
Yeah. Chain and iron holds together pretty good, even if you've got a fat butt. I don't know if you're in a position to see this amount of sole that he's digging out here.
Oh, yeah. Mike, do you charge by the pound for how much hoof you cut off?
I should. I should.
Okay, what I was talking about, the frog, that's what Mike's trimming on now. Of course, the frog's growed long as well as the foot, so he's got to trim it down in proportion. Mike is a regular horseshoer. He trims out of Cheyenne Wells. He travels quite a bit. He shoes saddle horses and trims them all the time. But he's one of the few guys that works on the big horses as well. A lot of times you call a horseshoer and tell him what size your horse is and they'll laugh at you and hang up. See, now that he's got all that sole cleaned out, you can see exactly what needs trimmed off.
How often should you have your horse trimmed?
Standard procedure on that, 6 to 8 weeks. Around here every year or two.
I like Fred Dornkamp's answer. He said, well, if I think they're getting them down too big, he takes them out on a blacktop road.
Fred's like I am. He's too old to go that far on blacktop to trim them anymore.
Run out of air.
Well, it is amazing how much that blacktop will trim them off. Years ago when I very first started driving, I was driving these big horses every day. You know, 6, 8, 10 miles a day. By golly, I had people ask, who trimmed your horses' feet? Me in the highway department. I never did trim them, you know. They wasn't growing fast enough for what that pavement would eat off. But as you can see, I've gotten away from that.
Yeah. I noticed Mike doesn't have black on, it's blue. Do they grow faster in the summertime or the wintertime?
Summertime a little bit.
I cheat.
Mike, maybe you want to tell them something about shoes. Put shoes on.
We'll put shoes on, we'll do it the same way. We'd usually have to use the forge to heat them up, to shape them. Then we'll hot set them. But you can't get that foot as flat with the rasp. You get that shoe hot, you can hot set it and make a perfect fit.
Other front first or
You got 2 straps on the back.
When you hot shoe, does it hurt them when you put it up
No.
on the hook?
There's no feeling where we're at. We're all, it's all horny laminae, which is dead sole, dead hoof. There's no, the sensitive structures are higher in there. We don't touch any of that.
Do you have a scientific wild ass guess if that horse kicked you, how much, what do you call, pounds per square inch has it?
You know, I have no idea, but it'd be a bunch.
You suppose you'd make it to the highway, the road?
It'd be a long ways, I think. You'd have a headache when you was done.
Yeah. Now suppose you come along and they don't have stocks. Then what happens?
Well, they can be trained to be done without, and you can do them without stocks. It's just an enormous amount of work, manual physical labor to hold that foot up, plus do all the trimming.
Mike, just for show and tell purposes, when you start on the hoof, can you cut it all the way around so it's one piece so we can show how big is the hoof?
Possibly, I can try. These old feet get so hard and dry, sometimes I gotta do what's called as the break method.
Yeah.
Cut a little and break it. But I'll try and cut a full ring.
Well, it doesn't have to be any particular foot.
Okay. Sometimes we can get a full.
A lot of times you can see how them has got cracks in them and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you'll have a real hard time getting that pulled off. You know, if that crack would be a little deeper. and when they're hard, or I mean dry, they get a lot harder. So he's got to clip it like that and use the leverage of the nippers to break off that piece. If they was, say in the springtime, or if he'd been in the water where his hooves are moist, then he could just trip all the way around. And as you can see, that end's pretty flexible. Well, the middle would be also, but in dry weather, a lot of times they'll just break real easy. So that's bending pretty easy and staying together. So. It's good doggy treats too.
Oops, sorry.
Your one doggy, he likes them.
My dog likes them. Yeah. He hides them like bones.
Yeah.
That's the trouble I'd have, Mike, is getting me off the ground.
It gets harder for me every year.
Doc, is it good to have, like at your feeders, have I won't say a mud puddle there, but mud so they stand in the mud?
Oh, it depends on the year. You know, if it's terrible dry, then the feet are going to get hard and brittle. It depends on what you're doing with them. If you stand them in the krill eating, big deal. And a lot of times, if they get real long and they're brittle, the excess will break off. It leaves them pretty choppy, but that's the way.
Do you think they
horses
could get
in the
Ed and Clary out early enough to
trim
go
their
out
feet,
and watch
they
the
just
equinox?
long and break pieces off and keep going.
No, we should have went yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
whining, but I'm still whittling. Just gotta take a breath.
How do you say? The old gray horseshoer isn't what it used to be.
What he did there, right there was the rope was a little loose and his foot was sliding around that post. He can't get to it to trim because of the block on the bottom.
Understand.
The neat thing about these stocks is if a horse is really, really crappy, hard to get along with, jack up this foot and go to the other side and jack up the opposite front foot where he's standing on two, one on each side. You can pretty well conquer him then because he can't do a thing. It's a little hard to pick up 2 feet out in the open.
Yeah, it is. You must be fast.
And tough. These big horses are just so doggone heavy, if they want to take their foot away from you, they do it.
Thank you, Mike.
He's getting a beautiful one for you, Pat.
Yeah. Oh, that'll last all day.
Perfectly round.
What do you call a little Tabasco on there? Oh, it chews so good.
If you chew on that a while, you won't have coronavirus.
It'll be Corella virus.
I was thinking about picking up some of that stuff that comes out from inside the hoof and trading that tobacco that Doc has in his pockets for that stuff.
Toe jam. Toe jam.
Toe jam, yes. I'm going to leave a little bit of this brown stuff on here for, it shows the color better.
And after you get done, well,
It improves the...
you use that knife to make your sandwich with too.
Yeah.
It adds to the flavor of mayonnaise.
Yeah.
You done?
Nice one, good help.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it is just one arm.
Yeah.
I don't want to put